Hello students, welcome back, and in this video lecture we are going to discuss a case scenario. This kind of question nowadays are coming in exam. So they give you a long case history, a long case of a patient, and then they either ask you about the diagnosis or ask you about the treatment part, investigation of choice, or the trigger for that patient. Sometimes they tell you all the history and in the end only they give you diagnosis and they ask what is the treatment for this particular disease. So this is a kind of question that comes nowadays in exams. So let's discuss one of this kind. An 8-year-old child was admitted. This is a child, and admitted was with the diagnosis of pneumonia. This child had pneumonia for last 3 days. IV antibiotics, when this child was admitted to the hospital with pneumonia, IV antibiotics was given for 3 days. Today, all of a sudden, his mother complains that the child has been vomiting a lot in the night. So yesterday in the morning round, when the doctor comes for the morning round, the mother of this child tells that the child was vomiting continuously yesterday night. And also there is epigastric pain involved in this patient. And when mother is calling that child, the child is not responding properly. Partially opening the eyes, and mother has got the sixth sense that my child is not well. And she's very scared, and she's telling doctor that he is not responding properly. So the child is drowsy or there is altered sensorium. Now you have started given antiemetic injection perinorm to this patient. But even after given the antiemetic injection, child is not responding. The vomiting is not subsided. So now you start examining the patient. What is happening? Is the pneumonia worsening in this patient? On examination, you find out that the pulse of this patient is 110 per minute. And that is the patient is in tachycardia. And when you check the BP of that patient, then the BP comes 80/60. Now this can be a reason, that can be because of vomiting. There is a low BP of the patient. And the respiratory rate of the patient is 20 per minute. Now, when there is a respiratory distress, you can think of maybe because of pneumonia, this respiratory distress is there. But this epigastric tenderness is present. What could be the reason for this epigastric tenderness and this vomiting part? You start investigating further in this patient. You can see tachycardia is there in the patient. There is increased heart rate. Now, because the patient is in pneumonia, you ask the sister to put SpO2 monitor. When you start putting SpO2 monitor, the reading comes 98%. And you are surprised that the oxygen saturation is okay, because earlier you were thinking maybe this epigastric pain is because of hypoxia. That is due to pneumonia component. But here when you see SpO2 is normal, it is 98%. Then you give ABG sample and you can see that pH is decreased. Now you must be thinking maybe this patient is in respiratory acidosis. pH is decreased means there is acidosis condition happening in the body. Because the patient is having pneumonia, you can correlate maybe it is respiratory acidosis. And when you see the PCO2 level, it is normal or even less. So you have ruled out the respiratory acidosis component. It is not respiratory acidosis because the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is normal or less. This means it is a case of metabolic acidosis. Now, because you have ruled out, it is acidosis only because pH is decreased, body is in acidosis condition. Now that you have ruled out the respiratory acidosis part, we are only left with metabolic acidosis. Now, when you do the carbonate test, carbonate you see there is less. So you have actually ruled out that the patient is having metabolic acidosis. Further, for this diagnosis, you are going to take the ketone sample in the urine and it comes out to be 4+. That means ketones are present in the urine. When you do the random blood sugar in this patient, it comes very high. It is 300 milligram per deciliter. In the previous lecture of diabetes mellitus, we have discussed what is the normal criteria for diabetes for the random blood sugar level. Random blood sugar level, if it comes more than 200, we call this patient as diabetic patient. And now you can see actually this child is having a lot of sugar in the blood. So the random blood sugar is also high. Now, because random blood sugar is high, this sugar component will come in urine also. But when you do the plasma beta hydroxybutyrate test, it is elevated. There are 3 ketones that are present in the body: acetone, acetate, and beta hydroxybutyrate. We have studied this in biochemistry that there are three ketones: acetone, acetate, and beta hydroxybutyrate. Beta hydroxybutyrate being the most acidic ketone, you can check this ketone and do the test in the plasma. So this is plasma beta hydroxybutyrate. When it is elevated, you can see that the person is having ketoacidosis in the body. Since the blood sugar is high, so you can diagnose this condition as diabetic ketoacidosis. Now you can see the child is having pneumonia. Child is admitted for pneumonia. And when you tell the mother of this child that the child is actually having, the child is a diabetic child, and this diabetes was undiagnosed. Now the lady must be telling, you must have given some medicine to my child, and that is why the blood sugar is high in this child. Earlier my child was normal. Earlier it was not diagnosed. Then you tell this mother of this child that this is an undiagnosed case of type 1 diabetes, and this pneumonia component actually is the trigger for this uncontrolled diabetes, and because of that the child has gone into diabetic ketoacidosis condition. So the first, you may be thinking maybe it is atypical pneumonia because there are GI complaints that are associated, but GI complaints are seen in atypical pneumonia. So you must be thinking that maybe it is atypical pneumonia because it does not show any typical symptoms, and must be thinking maybe it is worsening the pneumonia. But when you start the testing of the child, when you do the investigation workup, then pneumonia was actually the trigger point that was contributing to increase in the energy requirement in this child with less insulin, because the child is actually type 1 diabetes mellitus uncontrolled. Since there is deficiency of insulin in this child, that is why sugar is not reaching up to the muscle, and that is why the ketone bodies are produced, because fat break down to give ketones and muscle need energy. And that is why the child was actually drowsy at the first place, drowsy in altered sensorium, because there was no energy. Sugar was not reaching up to the muscles, and fat was breaking down to give energy, and breakdown of fat produces ketone body. And this highly acidic ketones, they cross the blood-brain barrier, and they can even cause cerebral edema. And if this child was not treated on time, not diagnosed on time, the child may have died. Could have died. So child may have died because of the cerebral edema component, because this was an undiagnosed case, or maybe because of dehydration. There is multiple vomiting episodes, and even if you have given antiemetic drug to the patient in injection, that too, and still the vomiting is not subsiding, the death can be because of dehydration in this patient. But the primary reason for death in patient could be cerebral edema. That is because of the diabetic ketoacidosis component. What is the trigger point? Trigger point is infection to diabetic ketoacidosis, be it as pneumonia or any other infection. In this case, if I say a child was having disproportionate breathing, instead of this scenario, if in this question they have given that the child was having disproportionate breathing, or the rate of breathing in this patient is high, or the depth of breathing in this patient is high, then you know that it is Kussmaul's breathing. And Kussmaul breathing, or if they have given that there is fruity smell coming from the breath of the child, then we know that it is acetone. Because of acetone the fruity breath comes. So if Kussmaul breathing and acetone component they have given in the question, then it's very obvious that it is diabetic ketoacidosis, and you can actually diagnose very easily. But in the question they have not given diabetic ketoacidosis. But when you start with the workup of this individual, then you can tell that the child is a diabetic ketoacidosis. If both of these points are given in question, if Kussmaul breathing is given, if fruity order breath is given, then you can tell that the answer becomes very easy. It becomes diabetic ketoacidosis. Nowadays, they give you all of these scenarios. They give you a scenario-based question, then the whatever the story I've told you, that the child was admitted to hospital, and when you start examining the workup shows this. And they will tell that in the end, they will tell that a diagnosis has been made and the child is found to be diabetic ketoacidosis. Now they ask you, what is the investigation of choice in this patient? Nowadays they give you such a long question, and they'll only give you diagnosis, but they ask you what is the investigation of choice. Investigation of choice in this is plasma beta hydroxybutyrate level, and these are high. They tells about the increase in the ketones. If they ask you, this is the investigation of choice. If they ask you what is the first line treatment that you give, the first line, because of the dehydration component, see the child is vomiting continuously and there is dehydration occurring in the body. For the dehydration component, because the child is vomiting, fluid loss can cause dehydration, and for the management of dehydration, we give normal saline plus we give potassium chloride. Now, you must be telling, ma'am, why don't we give Ringer lactate in this patient? Because Ringer lactate has got potassium in it. Why are we giving two combination, normal saline plus potassium chloride? See, the potassium chloride that we are giving is in concentration amount of 40 milli equivalent per liter. But Ringer lactate has got potassium only 4 milli equivalent per liter. So that is why instead of giving Ringer lactate, we are giving normal saline plus potassium chloride to this patient. Because of the vomiting, because of the ketonemia, because there is a lot of ketone bodies forming and they are in the blood, and that is why the child is having vomiting component. So ketonemia is causing the vomiting, and because the ketone activates the vomiting center in the body, the chemoreceptor trigger zone is activated by the ketones, and that is why there is a vomiting component that you can correlate with diabetic ketoacidosis. Normal saline we are giving, that is causing dilution of this ketonemia. Because you are giving saline, you are diluting it. So that is why the ketone bodies are excreted from the body. They are diluted. You are diluting the component of ketonemia. And also you are treating dehydration simultaneously. That is why we are giving normal saline to this patient. Now, instead of asking investigation of choice or first line treatment, they ask you what is the treatment of choice in this patient. The treatment of choice when they ask. See, there is a diabetic ketoacidosis component. The random blood sugar is high, so we need to control the blood sugar. So the treatment of choice in this case become insulin drip. It is not insulin bolus. It is insulin drip, which becomes the treatment of choice in this patient. So you admit the patient. The first line, you have to give first line treatment. First line treatment is normal saline plus potassium chloride. And then after 1 hour, you give the insulin drip to the patient. That is the treatment of choice. Now, when you give insulin drip to the patient, it will allow sugar to go into the muscle. Muscles were not getting sugar, and that is why it was breaking fats to give ketone bodies. And once you give insulin drip, all of a sudden muscles are getting sugar, and that is why this process is stopped and the blood sugar start falling. But you should make sure that the falling sugar is gradual falling, not a sudden drop in the sugar. So the blood sugar start falling when it starts dropping and falls up to less than 250 milligram per deciliter. In that scenario, you introduce 5% dextrose plus 0.45% saline. Now, the normal saline that you have given in the first line, this normal saline that you have given in the first line is 0.9% isotonic saline. But here we are giving 0.45% saline and 5% dextrose to the patient, because if there is disproportionate fall in the sugar of the patient, then it makes more shift and across the blood-brain barrier, and it can even worsen the cerebral edema component. Edema, swelling in the brain. Cerebral means brain. Edema means swelling. Swelling in the brain can worsen. So sugar values should be gradually dropped. Slowly we drop the values of the sugar. Not all of a sudden we drop the values of sugar. So up to 250, when it reaches up to 250, that is how we give, till the time we give insulin drip. But after that, when the value is 250 or less than 250, then we start with 5% dextrose and 0.45% saline. What is the trigger that is causing this diabetic ketoacidosis? See, this patient, they can even ask you what is the trigger that is causing. What is the trigger? It is pneumonia or any infection. If the type 1 diagnosis is made and the patient has missed the dose, suppose the child is known diabetic patient and the mother was busy in some reception or wedding thing in the family happening, and mother has stopped the dose. So in that case also patient can go into diabetic ketoacidosis. Or suppose if mother has connected to the insulin pump and insulin pump malfunctions. It is not working properly. Mother thinks that she has given insulin pump and the insulin is given to the child, but because of the malfunctioning she has not noticed it, and that could be a reason. The insulin pump malfunction or the insulin dose missed can also be a trigger for diabetic ketoacidosis. Diabetic ketoacidosis is not only seen in type 1 diabetes mellitus. It can also be seen in type 2 diabetes mellitus. And the trigger for that can be either MI or stroke in the patient. So in a nutshell, we know that the diagnosis of this child is diabetic ketoacidosis. What is the investigation of choice in this child is plasma beta hydroxybutyrate. Beta hydroxybutyrate is a ketone body. And when you test this ketone body, when it is present in the plasma, then we say the patient is diabetic ketoacidosis patient. This is the investigation of choice. When you have investigated, when you have diagnosed the child or a person having diabetic ketoacidosis, what is the first line of treatment that we give? Normal saline. And then we start with potassium chloride. The investigation of choice is, of course, insulin drip, because this is a diabetic condition and you need to make sure the sugar level falls. But this insulin drip is given till the time the sugar values reaches up to 250. If it is less than 250, then we give 5% dextrose plus, see, N/2 saline means 0.45% saline we give. If they ask you what is the cause of death in the child, if the child has died, what is the cause of death in the child, then it is cerebral edema component majorly. If cerebral edema is not given, it could be because of dehydration, the child was vomiting. Trigger to this diabetic ketoacidosis is infection here in this question, pneumonia component, or it can be stroke, MI, or any UTI. If in question they give you Kussmaul breathing, they give you fruity odor in the breath, or they give you acidotic hyperventilation, then all of these are actually keywords for diabetic ketoacidosis. So answer to this question is diabetic ketoacidosis. All the best.